Don Martin is standing by, the host of Power Play. Great to have you with us, Don. I want to get your take on this. What do you make of it?
Well, Justin Trudeau's headache is just getting started by the sounds of it. When a senior member of his cabinet quits like that Jody Wilson-Raybould did today, and also says on her way out the door, I'm retaining legal counsel to advise me on whether I have to stay quiet. That tells you two things. One, she's very unhappy with the translation the Prime Minister has of her earlier behavior and her earlier comments and these allegations, as well as it tells you she may not stay quiet for very long. So Justin Trudeau issued a statement, as you know, Todd. I got to say, Justin Trudeau issues hundreds of these statements, and they're always very empathetic and appreciative, and he thanks everybody. Not even a whisper of appreciation or thanks for Jody Wilson-Raybould. Basically, here's your hat, what's your hurry, as she goes out the door. And conversely, Jody Wilson-Raybould's resignation thanked everybody for everything, and she didn't say anything to the Prime Minister. So this is a very cold, hard exit from cabinet for her. And I guess it begs the question, can she really stay in this caucus much longer, or will she seek re-election under the Liberal banner? Both very good questions I'm sure will be decided down the road.
Yeah, so let me ask you, about a month ago, Don, we were talking about Wilson-Raybould being shuffled out of Justice to Veterans Affairs. You know, there was this idea of why, what's going on? What did she do or not do? What's the story behind the story, so to speak, here? Perhaps a first indication that something was wrong. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, all this talk that she was just difficult to work with, this was the PMO whisper, not so fast. This seems to have some better and stronger dots connecting an action to a reaction. Sounds like the government put forward legislation designed to give SNC-Lavalin a way out from a trial. Custom designed for them, by the way, and custom timed for them, by the way. And Jody Wilson-Raybould wouldn't play ball with that idea, and suddenly a cabinet shuffle takes place, a lousy one at that, and she gets shuffled down to Veterans Affairs and doesn't take it very well. So how it spun out from there, Todd, how the Globe and Mail got their hands on these allegations, I don't know, but certainly it starts to make a lot more sense about this shuffle now than it did at the moment when it happened, because it didn't look like she justified being demoted like that.
And let me ask you as well about the SNC-Lavalin storyline here. I mean, this is, as you know, huge company, domestically, internationally as well. And this idea that if they were to be found guilty, Don, and convicted of fraud, I mean, that would be a huge blow to them, and obviously their profit margins as well. They employ close to 10,000 Canadians and are involved in all sorts of projects, you know, light rail where you are in Ottawa, the Canada Line in Vancouver, regional transit in Montreal. I mean, on and on and on it goes, so-called too big to fail. How do you think that plays into this story potentially?
Well, they are probably too big to fail, but unfortunately for them, they've engaged in practices not just here, but around the world, not on this one case, but in many cases, including some that are still being geared up in Quebec over this, of corruption and bribery and other scandals. And I guess the question is, when you get to that size, does that mean you don't have to face your day in court? You're given a get-out-of-trial-free card? I think a lot of people are saying, no, there's one tier of justice, not two, and just because you're big and have a lot of employees doesn't give you a way to get out. On the other hand, if you listen to Quebec commentators, they're sort of going the way you are on this, Todd, in the sense, maybe it's your Quebec roots that are coming out here. They're saying, look, we've got a lot of jobs here, and this is one of the three jewels in our crown. We have to keep this company afloat. A lot of people's pension plans depend on this, and certainly a lot of people's jobs on top of it. So they're a lot more empathetic to the Trudeau government's move to try and get this deferred prosecution agreement than perhaps most Canadians would be. So we'll just have to see how that folds out. The new Justice Minister, David Lametti, hasn't said that won't happen, although the Director of Public Prosecution seems pretty adamant that there's not going to be a special deal for SNC on this one. So it's going to be a work in progress on that file.
Okay, and I know you got to go, but I have one more thing, and you just raised it, which is, you know, when you look at what the government is is and is not allowed to do, what they're supposed to do, not supposed to do. There's something in here, Don, that I thought was interesting, and I know you know about this, which is that, prosecutions should be free from political control, direction, and influence. And yet, there is some room, according to the rules, for the Attorney General to consult with the Prime Minister and other cabinet ministers from intervening in a prosecution, but before they intervene, if it has to do with, a case that is very complex or sensitive, that sort of thing. And maybe that's what we're talking about here when you're talking about a company the size of SNC-Lavalin.
There is a very gray and fuzzy wall between a prime minister directing or pressuring a justice minister or attorney general to act in a certain way on one of these cases, or one that's just sharing information and bantering around some thoughts around a table and saying, boy, this would be too bad if these guys shed all those jobs and went out of business. And then the justice minister or attorney general acting on that intuition, if you will, from the table. And that's the problem. Is this a direction or a pressure tactic, or was it just the prime minister being concerned about a file and the attorney general not picking up the way the prime minister wanted it to go, and therefore being punished for it through the cabinet shuffle? So this is going to be a semantical issue. It's going to haunt this topic for a long time. Was it pressure, or was it just an information sharing and maybe a gentle nudge? We'll have to see.
Don, I know it's busy where you guys are as you prepare for your show, but thank you for this. Great to get you on.
You bet.